Die Sonne wird heruntergehen und irgendwann wird kommen die goldene Pave zu fliehen. Wird kommen die goldene Pave zu fliehen. Und mitnehmen wird sie uns alle hin. Hin, wo die Bänkschaft wird ziehen.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Lisa Grissom, and I'm the Special Projects Director for Yiddishkeit. I want to thank you for joining us for our conversation with Eleanor Reissa as we discuss her captivating new memoir, The Letters Project, A Daughter's Journey. Before we begin, I want to share a little bit about Yiddishkeit for those of you who don't know. Yiddishkeit is an intercultural arts nonprofit with a focus on both preserving and promoting Eastern European and Yiddish culture and to finding points of connection with immigrant communities today. Through arts and culture, we explore how our knowledge and experience of the past connects us to the present moment. Tonight, we are so excited to have Eleanor Reissa with us. Eleanor is a true multi-hyphenate, a Tony-nominated director, an acclaimed Broadway and television actress, a published playwright, a celebrated singer who often performs in Yiddish, and an accomplished memoirist. Welcome, Eleanor. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks so much. I'm so glad to be here, Lisa. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, me too. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. I have read the book. I've read it twice. I feel very connected to this story and to this book and this tale. And yeah, I'm just very excited that we have this opportunity together.
Me too. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'd like to just jump right in. We have so much to unpack. And, what I'm struck by this book is that it's really a heroine's journey in a sense. And like any good story, it starts with an inciting incident. And in your case, there's sort of two. We've got, well, I'm going to let you tell the two stories. I'd love for you to give us the context of the events that really kick you off in your journey.
Do you mean which just title the events for me?
I mean,
to me, there's an event in every chapter. There is an event. Every minute is an event.
Yeah. When your mother first passes away in 1986.
And the second one, and the second event?
The second one is 30 years later.
Yes, I see.
So I'm really interested and really intrigued by, why do you think you held off, in 1986, and what was it that made you take action? And I'd love just the context around those two moments in time.
Yeah. Well, my mother died in 1986, and my father died in I kind of have to give it a bit of a context. So my mother died in 1986 at the age of 64. My father died in 1976, 10 years earlier, at the age of 74. He was 20 years older than she. He was born in 1901 and she in 1922. And they divorced in 1960 something. So he was out of the picture for her by the time she died. More than 20 years he was out of the picture. When she died, in her lingerie drawer, I found a purse, and inside the purse, inside a little plastic baggie, were 56 letters. And they were all dated 1949, like July 24th, July 26th, August 4th, August 8th, August 10th, 6 months worth of letters until January 1950. And they were all, they were written in longhand and with English letters, not with Hebrew letters. That's right. I thought too. And I could read the salutation, which said Tayaru Halen Shamale, which was my mother's name, an endearing way of saying my mother's name, and an endearing way of saying her son from her first marriage, his name. Every letter, Tayaru Halen Shamale, and every letter ended with, Dein Geliebte, your beloved, Haskell Schlüsselberg, my father. And each letter also it was business paper, business stationery that had his name printed on the top. And in German, it said importer, and it said of what he imported that at first I didn't understand, and an address and a bank account and a phone number.
And was that in English, that part, the importer?
No,
Okay.
German. It was in German. That was in German. I did not think my mother spoke German. I knew my father spoke German. So I didn't understand the letters. I didn't understand what language they were in even. And I had some pals, and over the years I showed it to them, and it just gave me a headache. Like, what should I do with them? 56 letters. It's not 3. Right. It's a lot. And the letters were big paper, like practically legal sized stationery. And every inch of the paper, something was written on, upside down and around the edges and on the back. And I had no idea what it was. So what did I do with such a find? I kept it in the plastic bag, and I put it in my underwear drawer. I didn't know what to do with it, really. You can say to me, well, so in 2018, 30 years later, I was doing a show on Broadway called Indecent, and which was about a Jewish theme, understatement. And Paula Vogel, the playwright, and Rebecca Teichman, the director, had spent like 10 years on this project. And I was very honored to be in the company. And it also gave me a kind of confidence. And I thought to myself, you're entitled to find out what's in those letters. You're entitled to you just made some money on Broadway. So don't be a cheapskate. Spend some of that money and hire a translator. To me, though, the real event. So I hire I don't hire I think who do I know? I don't think I'll go to Leo Beck or to Evo, although I do, and it's expensive.
Right.
It's very expensive.
Yes.
So I think, who do I know? Don't I know anybody? And I think of this singer that I know who's living in Germany. He speaks German, he speaks Yiddish. And as soon as I think of him, I run into him in the street. And this is, in a way, how the whole book is.
It's the way the whole book works. It's all the universe, you deciding to do this, and then all of these guides and helpers come into your orbit. And I think that's what's just so fascinating about this story.
So I run into him and I say, hey, would you like to translate? He said, I don't do that, but my girlfriend is a translator. Oh, okay. And she's in town. Oh, okay. So I meet her. I give her a page of one of the German letters. It turns out it's German, of course. And she sends me her translation. And I think, okay, I'm going to go with her. So go with her in terms of I will choose her to be my translator. Months go by. I hire 2 other translators because it's going so slowly. Right. But I have a concert with Frank London in Berlin. And this is if there were a third event, right? My mother dies, I find the letters. I do a Broadway show and make some money and feel somewhat courageous 30 years later, and I begin to have the letters translated. But the event, the way I see it, the event of the book is, so I'm in Berlin with Frank, London, and I'm meeting Yeva, the translator, to give her some money, and she to give me letters, and to me to give her more letters. And she says to me at this coffee, we're having coffee, she says, you know, my brother lives in Stuttgart around the corner from the address on your father's letterhead. Oh, first she says, I'm going to Stuttgart. I say, well, great, good. That's nice. You know, who cares? That's nice. Yes. But my brother lives around the corner from your father's address. What? Yeah. So would you like to go with me? What? And that's, and as we say in Yiddish, dort liegt the Hint begraben. That's where the dog is buried. Right there in that, would you like to go with me to Stuttgart? When she says that to me, and I'm fairly bowled over, and I don't, you know, will I want to go? What for? Isn't everybody dead? Is there any reason? Why should I go? On and on and on. And that's what the book is about, basically. It's about having said yes to Yeva and this willingness to take this journey into the unknown. I mean, I'm not a researcher, you know, I'm an improvisational, seat of my pants kind of person. And that's what began, that's what the journey was. And it was Yeva, really, who began it. And then a plethora, or a handful, let's say better, of others, especially Germans, came to my aid.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think it's just so extraordinary that, you know, throughout this book, you're so open about what you're doing. And I know if you want to speak about the chicken bone, you know, metaphor, but I mean, I really appreciated you bringing in your process. You know, you're very open about, I'm a little messy. I try to figure things out. I kind of move on the fly, which I love. And then you meet up with people that are like, oh, we can make this happen. And they all just do. And, you know, you're at dinner or you're somewhere else and you meet, I mean, I wrote down all the names like Nude and Hardy and the archivist and the journalist and the costume designer. So I'd love to hear more just about the domino effect. You know, it starts with Yeva, and then, because you're only there 5 days. That's the crazy thing.
Yes, 5 days. 5 days in heaven / hell.
Right.
You know, the best / worst days of my life.
Right.
And really, it felt like years or something. I mean, every minute of every day felt enormous. But so Yeva says this to me, and Frank London has this friend / impresario, and I meet him, and Frank had told him about the letters, and this fellow Lutz Engelhardt, who also wound up translating a little bit. I mean, everybody was so helpful. It was unbelievable. I said, well, you know, there's some information. My father was in Stuttgart. He says, well, if you decide to go, I can connect you with some people in Stuttgart. Oh, okay. And then I say, like, just in passing, I said, yeah, my father writes about this little town, Ludwigsburg. And he says, Ludwigsburg? I know some people in Ludwigsburg, and Ludwigsburg is, of course, not a little town. It's like the seat, the county seat or something. It's a big town. And he sets me, and he says, so that's what he says. And then I still don't know what to do. And a friend of mine, who's a writer in Israel, who has a hotel, Arabesque, who in Akko, calls me when I'm trying to figure out if I should join Yeva or not. He calls me and he says, hey, I'm turning my hotel into a writer's residence for 2 weeks. Are you working on anything? And I said, well, when are you doing that? And it was 2 days after Yeva would be done with me if I would to go with her. So that was sort of the end of it. I mean, that my friend was offering me an opportunity to stay in a hotel in Akko, free of, just get there, and the rest is on the house. And
And
so I,
do you feel like that gave you kind of like a focus for what you were doing? Like you had you had a place to go where you could process all of this and also create something. I don't know if at that time you knew that you were going to write a book.
I didn't know. I was thinking that I would write a play. That's what I thought. I thought it would be like a 3-character play, like a mother character, a father character, and a me character, or even like a one-woman show where I thought it was a small story.
Right.
I thought it was about the letters or my parents' relationship, but it turned out to be so much greater. I didn't really know what I was writing. I just started writing, but I've been at retreats before, 2 actually. That's all. I think
Yeah.
2. And I know what I have to do. You just have to write.
Right. You just
You just have to do it. You don't have to know what you're doing. You just have to start and commit. And so that's what I did. I committed kind of to recording my time in Germany, and it just spread out from there.
Yeah. And in terms of just the things that you learn about on this journey, one of the things I noticed and I really felt really strongly was that sort of the scope of Jewish history after World War II is sort of all the milestones of that history is sort of represented in this story in your family history, from Kristallnacht all the way to Brooklyn, right? So I was just so moved, and it was just fascinating that in this tale, all of these historical markers are there. Kindertransport, obviously, surviving Auschwitz, a death march, all these things, the displaced persons camp. So when you were learning all these things, that you had no idea, you knew, all you knew was that your parents survived.
Well, I knew that my mother and her family fled Poland, like in 41, and they fled east to Uzbekistan. I knew that. They'd spoken about that. I don't know how they got to Uzbekistan. And then I knew that in like 45 or 46, they went to Germany to a displaced persons camp in Ulm, which is right near Stuttgart. And then they came to America in 49. And basically, that's what I knew about them. About my father, I knew much less. My parents were divorced. I lived with my mother. I spent my time with my mother's family, very little time. I saw my father on Sundays. That was it. And very little time with his family, extended family. But if you want, I could just hit a couple of balls out of the park and say that my father was born in 1901 in this small town in Poland to parents of some wealth. I don't know if you want to show that photo 2, actually.
Yeah, let's show that photo.
Photo 2.
Number 2. Yeah, let's do that.
And he came from a family that had a farm and had a cow, and I don't know what you can see up there, but those are my grandparents, and those 2 of those men are my father's brothers, and I'm not sure who the 2 men with the cow, I suspect the one with the hat is also a brother. And so but what I didn't know, what I learned, so what I look, part of what I learned is that the people that Lutz and Yeva connected me to found testimony for me
Right.
in Ludwigsburg, where my father himself, my father's own voice or handwritten voice, tells what happened to him. He tells what happened to him. There's one testimony that that they find for me, given to the Justice Department, of trying to find low-level Nazis. They knew who the big Nazis were, and they were asking people who the little Nazis were: the baker, the postman, who hit you, who hurt you, who pushed you into the car.
Right.
And so I learned. And why did they speak to my father? I learned because he was the only survivor from his transport to return back alive.
Wow.
So already I'm out of my league. Already I mean, I thought I thought it was I thought my father was a nothing, a nobody. That's sort of who he was in America. He was a sweatshop worker with false teeth and illiterate in English, and kind of loser. And that he survived, well, good for him. What a stroke of good luck, I thought. And I'm not saying it was more, but it was more than good luck, which is not to say, okay, we'll come to that. So
yeah, I mean, do you want to show, because there's a couple of things I want to say about this, that you learned that your father was an importer. You learned that he comes from a family that had some wealth. They had a cow, that
they had more than I mean, they that's what I see in the photo, but they had more than a cow.
Yeah, they had more than a cow. And did they have a farm? They had a farm.
Yeah, they had a farm, and I think they had a business operation.
Yeah,
of some kind. He delivered eggs, my father,
and poultry.
And
yeah.
So, but.
And I also want to just say that a lot of people don't know that Jews farmed. Like even just Jews having a farm. Like I don't think a lot of people know that. Just lay people may not know that. I found that to be really interesting.
But I just want to say, like, in that document from 1947, which is before any of the letters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the earliest thing and it's in the beginning of the trip. The
testimony.
That particular testimony, yes, is in the beginning of the trip, and I mean, it was day 3, so maybe, or day 2. That was day 3. So, but. He writes about his train trip to Auschwitz, right? So I mean, you read about the cattle cars going to Auschwitz, and you read what happened sort of to people, but that's my father who says what happened to him. And so all of a sudden, the Holocaust was personal, but now it's family history.
Right. How did it feel? How did it feel hearing and reading your dad's words, your father's words?
It was shocking. I mean, it was shocking. And who was he? I thought. My father, I didn't know him. And that's part of, the boatloads of realizations in this, but part of it was I met my father when he was 50 years old.
Right.
And he died when he was 76. So I knew him for 25 years, the last 25 years after he was already completely broken. But he didn't begin broken.
Right.
He began as an entrepreneurial. In the letters, it's clear that he was poetic. Mm-hmm. It's clear that he had dough, and so he moved to Germany in 1919 after World War One. Who knew that? I didn't know when he went to Germany. I didn't know why, and there he met. He was very big Germanophile, very big.
I know, it's interesting because in the early part of the book, you mentioned that he buys you a car and it's a VW. I love that you dropped that little breadcrumb in there, and that he loved German ingenuity and
Even
German.
after,
Right.
after.
I know.
After.
Well, let's take a look at some of these early pictures of your father.
Let's take a look at this. So he marries this woman in 1930. Let's take a look at that photo, number one, I think it is.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now, I just want to. If you can see in his left hand, he's holding white gloves.
Right.
You can see it's a tux. It's a white tie tux. Behind him, you kind of can't see it in this photo, is a silk top hat. And look at how she's dressed. So this is like 1929. I mean, it's just, that's who my father was.
Wow.
What I don't have in this book are pictures of my father as I knew him.
Right.
And I didn't do that because I didn't think he would have liked that, because it's like looking at someone dead who, it's not the right picture of him, but he was not that man that you see there. And if you go to number 3, you can see him as a young man before the marriage, when, so it's kind of funny, I think. There are 2 pictures like this in the book that I had, and one of the helpers, one of the men who helped me in Germany, he said to me, "Is there anything you would like me to get for you? A person or something?" And I said, "Yeah, can you introduce me to a costume designer from the theater or from a movie set? Because I know that a costume designer will look at this," which I know nothing about this photo. I don't know when it's taken. I don't know where it's taken. I don't know anything about my father at this time. And I'll be damned if this Hardy didn't set me up with a costume designer from a theater house in Stuttgart. And she looked at these pictures and she said, "Yes, look at the collar. Look at the outfit. This is 1927, whatever she said to me. I don't, of course, remember." And she said, "Look at how carefully he's dressed." And I showed her the photos that we've seen, some that we'll see, but many that we won't. And I looked at these photos my whole life. But she says, "Look at the boots. Look how the coat fits him. See how his coat fits better than your uncle's coat? Your father," she says to me, "was a clothes horse." And and all of these things, I realize how ignorant I am. So if you want to go through a few more photos, you can just go through them and we can chat about them. But so that was that testimony from 47, right?
Right.
But then Yeva located, so yeah, well, those are my parents, and that's my beautiful mother, and that's my father. And part of what I wanted from my trip, the little that I could imagine, was I wanted to go to this river. You could, the next, show the next photo if you can, Ariana. So that was, I thought, I want to find the spot in Ulm where they took these photos.
So I'm really glad you brought that up, because what I want to talk about too is that part of Yiddishkeit's work is that we talk about, one of our programs is the Helix Fellowship, where we go to these places and we we experience these places in the present, and we have an embodied experience. And that's exactly what you did. You had an embodied experience by going to these places. And tell us about this picture, and then I want to ask a few more questions about that.
Well, so this picture, I mean, this was a family joke, kind of, that they would do this perspective thing,
Yeah.
and it would look, and there are a few family members of the family that have done this, and that's my mother. And so I've looked at this photo my whole life.
Wow.
Because it was such a, it's such a unique photo. But I had no idea that the river that I'm looking at is the Danube, and that Speyer is the highest spire in Germany. And I mean, anybody in Germany will know that this is Ulm, that this is a recognizable place. So indeed, we went to Ulm, and I went to we found the displaced persons camp, and talk about inhabiting places from the past in the present, and indeed I write about that,
Right.
in the book. And but do you want to see Yeva while we're at it?
Let's see Eva. She's the other heroine of the story.
She is a heroine of the story. There would really be no story without a. So she, I mean, this photo, this selfie that we did is taken in front of the displaced persons camp that my mother and her family was in. And Yeva is, beautiful inside and out. And, I was just, kind of like, I look like one of the dwarfs.
It's adorable.
Dopey head. But it was an incredible exploration and relationship, and that she was with me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and that was it. This was
wow. It's so compressed, this experience.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, and I in a way, I'm just speaking from a little bit of experience with Yiddishkeit. I went on this trip, and it was a compression of time also, where we go to these places, and as I certainly don't want to spend time on it now, but it impacted me in the sense that, I have a creative project that I'm working on that was a direct result of that. So I'm really curious about how your life has been informed by this experience. I mean, I know that's a huge question, but, do you have any sense of how this might transform your life in general and your creative life? And maybe
I'm going to read this to you then, because and it's the end of the book, and I could read from earlier, but this is what's called the takeaway, and I think it's the last chapter in the book, and it sort of sums up kind of. It doesn't actually, because it continues to. It's like I grew something, it's a bit like a garden, and this book is sprouting things like on me, and I'm becoming a bit more and more myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's been more than 2 years since I was in Germany. Before I went there, I knew nothing. Now I know a little bit more than nothing, but still not everything. The darkness that has been with me all of my days is clearer now, more defined, based on facts rather than shapeless shadows. The sources of my sorrow are labeled and filed and have a beginning, although not an end. That will die when I die. Here are my takeaways. I am certain, even though I'm not a scientist and even though I've done little research, that my own rage, of which there is plenty, and my existential fear and consciousness of death, and my sarcasm and greed and empathy, all of these things and more come directly from the womb in which I was born. My genes contain the chromosomes of memory, their memory, my parents' memory, inherited trauma. My chromosomes remember the years of starvation, the years of freezing, the years of beatings, the constant flinching, waiting for the next blow, preparing for the pain, the trauma of being whipped on the block, the hiding, the smoking, and the clipping of hair, and sleeping on the wooden shoes, and being secretive, and being wily, and being scared to death, and scared of death. My radar is locked onto the stink of anti-Semitism and racism, as well as the cruel arbitrariness of extermination. A simple turn to the right or left can hasten the end, or can equal the end. How can you ever be careful enough? That's one part of this takeaway, the part about me, about how and who I am and why. Is my anger and irreverence a bit more understood now? Forgiven? Gosh, I hope so. But there's something else. Something I've been holding inside for these 2 years, waiting for this moment to say, here and now, I will repeat these words again and again until the very end of my days. My father and the others who lived and died during that time in that place were not survivors. No, I reject that term. Those people did not survive. Dogs survived, cows survived. What those people did, all of them, not just the ones in the ghettos or the forests or the basements or the camps, was fight. They were fighters. Whether they lived or were killed, they fought. With every molecule of their breath and brain and brawn, they fought to live with all their might and their heart and prayers and selflessness and selfishness and guns and books and pens and bread. They were Holocaust fighters, not survivors. In the cattle cars, up the chimneys, in the attics and tunnels and sewers, they fought for their lives, for our life, for my life. I am not a child of Holocaust survivors. No, I reject that passive, minimizing, head-bowing term. My father never bowed down his head. He said, well, why should I? Why should we? Words count. I, Eleanor Reissa Schlüsselberg, am the daughter of Holocaust fighters, courageous humans who fought the devil like hell for life to the death. Can you imagine if the world had called them Holocaust fighters? To have been the daughter of fighters rather than the daughter of survivors? I would have been Supergirl, for goodness sake, strong and proud rather than an ashamed hidden light. What is the daughter of a survivor entitled to? Nothing. Not a thing. Whatever I had was more than I needed and way more than they had. It was all gravy. My life was gravy, and that was enough. But the daughter of a fighter? What is the daughter of a fighter entitled to? Everything. Every damn thing. They fought for a full, rich, worthy life, and anything less is to spit in their sweet, loving faces. That is my inheritance. So on a certain level,
Amazing.
What's changed? I'm not so angry anymore. It's been very interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they are now seen,
Mm-hmm.
and I am now seen. I understand. I am deserving. I am Supergirl.
Yep.
I don't have to make myself less and less and, oh, that's enough. No, I don't need, no. No. And so I don't have to be so angry about it anymore. I mean, I was angry.
That reframing shifts everything. Yeah.
So it's, I'm more confident. I'm somewhat less fearful. I feel more capable. My father was capable. I think of part of the reason that he was not shipped off until 43 was because he was useful to the Nazis.
Right.
He worked. He did. And I'm not comparing the two necessarily, but that's what I've done. I've worked. I work. Can you do this? Sure, I can do that. I've never done it before, but yeah, I can do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. And that I'm afraid. Well, of course I'm afraid. My father was beaten within an inch of his life and starved within an inch of his life. And my mother was also starved. And that sperm met that egg, and those things multiplied and divided, but they all those cells were starved at one, I mean, I'm not a scientist, so people can
Yeah.
argue with me about all that. But
No, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. But also
I'm much better. My life is and people are reading the book.
Yeah.
And people are writing to me about the book, and I'm talking about the book, and I'm talking about racism, and
Yes.
I'm talking about anti-Semitism, and the term to call those people were minimized when it came out of those camps.
Yeah.
They were minimized by calling them survivors. And I don't mean that against anybody who uses that term or appreciates that term, but it implied that the fighters were in the forests and the poor Auschwitz people just sort of whatever. And we're not even going to talk about the people in the showers and the people who starved. No, I reject it. The people in the showers fought. The people on the trains fought. The children fought. The babies fought. They fought. I mean, I can kind of get worked up about it, but I'm so in the mood to yak, Lisa.
Yeah.
I mean, send me somewhere. And
yeah, I mean, here we are right now, and we know that there's a hearing on tonight that we'll watch later. But we're dealing with fascism right now,
Correct.
and we're dealing with the rise in anti-Semitism, and
Ukraine and Russia. I mean, I'm not one to use the word trigger much, but what is that if not an annihilation of a people?
Right. Yeah, and they're fighting,
and in the book I ask, what did those Germans do when they saw people being rounded up? What are we doing? Clicking the like emoji and sending a check, clicking an embrace emoji, a sad emoji, an angry emoji. It's
right.
It's interesting. It's an interesting perspective to have to know about the best of humanity and the worst of humanity.
I mean, that's why I think, this book is so important, because it's one woman's story of her family, but it gives dimension to the Holocaust, this like monolithic idea. And I feel like your story is like your fingerprint. Somebody else has a story that's their fingerprint, and no two stories are alike. And that's why it matters. That's why the story matters so much. And I think that's why people are coming to you. And, lots of people have stories, and all of those stories matter, because you learn something new and something different every time.
And the reporter, for example, I agree to allow a German reporter, to accompany me on this journey without thinking. I mean, without thinking. And the minute I meet her, I think, oh God, what have I done? I mean, it's such a personal trip, and she's a good reporter, so she's nosy and tenacious, and of course, really, Lisa, she and I are now very good friends.
Oh,
and
what was her name again? Hilke?
Hilke.
Hilke
Lawrence, and she's a writer for the Stuttgart Zeitung, and here's a bizarre, what else is new, Eleanor? I've just gotten German citizenship.
Wow.
And it's like, what?
This just happened? Wow.
I mean, I was trying to get Polish citizenship because during the Trump administration, I was very, very, very frightened. And I thought my father did so much to live and to make me that if that I needed to protect his creation, and if I smell smoke over there and don't do anything,
Right.
so do something. So I thought, well, I'll get another passport. I don't know what to do with another passport, but I'll get another passport in case I could. And even though both my parents were Polish born, I was not able to get a passport.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. But Germany passed a law recently about uh, Holocaust camp people's prodigy being able to get papers.
Wow.
I mean, and it's so ironic, and it's all so, the irony of everything,
Irony of that is,
the irony of life
yeah,
is just a lot.
that's a lot. That's a lot. And I want to say too, your father, just this reframing the narrative about being a fighter, to go through that testimony was not easy. I mean, that testimony is really, really intense to read, and he really wanted to do that. He really
He wanted reparations.
wanted reparations. Yeah, and he deserved them, as
And
so
he
many.
deserved them. Yes, yes.
And he fought for them. He fought for them, and I just found that really powerful. And I thought that was I've never read anything like that before.
And it was, it was not anything that I expected to find. I mean, you know what I mean? The testimony, that testimony from 1967 that he gave, 30 pages, where he talks about Auschwitz and what Auschwitz was like on a day-to-day. I mean, it's like Primo Levi.
Right.
It's like reading Survival in Auschwitz, but your father writes it. And then the Death March, which I knew absolutely, I mean, I knew about it, but didn't know about how he experienced it and stuff like that. So,
Right. And do you know, did he get reparations?
Oh yeah, he did.
He did.
Yeah. No, he got reparations from, I don't know when they began.
Right.
But they ended when he died. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and it was helpful. It was helpful to me. It was helpful to me because he was in a nursing home at that time. So he had some cash when he was there. Yeah.
I wanted to also say, because I think just in terms of your writing, this is obviously very heavy, serious stuff, but it's also very funny, and very true and authentic to you. And I feel like anybody reading this book will feel like they know you a little bit.
I do the audiobook.
That's right.
I read the audiobook. So, which you can get like on Audible or Amazon. So that was interesting.
How was that experience recording the audiobook?
First of all, you get to see the typos after the book is published that you've read 8 trillion times, and 42 editors have read it. And there, as you're reading out loud, there's the type, you see the typos, but it was really, it's like laser focused,
Right.
and it's like doing voiceover work, but for 250 pages. And I don't want to cry, and I just need to plow through. And the engineer, Phil, I'm now forgetting his last name, was quite wonderful, and we worked every day for 2 weeks. And when it was like the end, it was like we both, him too, we both started I didn't know him, and we both started crying, and he came into the booth and gave me a hug. And
Well, I'm sure giving voice to it, I mean, writing it and then giving actual voice to it, is a very powerful thing.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for almost everything. I mean, there are some things I wish, oh, this or that, but it's just it's I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm
Yeah.
grateful. I'm grateful.
We have a couple of questions. One is from
Great.
our dear friend Krista Whitney,
Ah,
who asks, is there something you'd say, Eleanor, to other descendants of those who lived through the Holocaust but know very little about their family history?
yes, yes, I surely would, and you can tell in the book because I knew very little as well, even though I'm immersed and dipped deep in the Holocaust. This stuff, there's testimony or information out there. I mean, there's the Holocaust museums that sometimes they have something, but Germany kept really good records, and
Mm-hmm.
it might be a bit of a slog to do, but go to the town,
Right.
even though it was worth it, like that. I found the displaced persons camp. That was already so meaningful, and that was the first day of the trip, and I wrote, okay, I'm done. I
Right.
mean, I
It
found
would have
that.
been Dianu.
It would
Dianu.
have, it's totally, the whole trip, every day was Dianu. Every day was Dianu. And so I would just say, if you can, and also I would say, talk to whoever's alive and
Right.
and ask, and if they themselves weren't there, ask their children or their wife or their husband, or I mean, ask questions, write it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well,
you can go to those places and
yeah, and that speaks to the embodied, the granular sensory experience that you had there.
yeah, because even if nothing was there, there was the Danube.
Right.
Even just, oh, the Danube,
Right. And that picture, knowing,
that picture.
yeah.
So yeah, just follow your nose, right foot, left foot. You don't need to know the outcome now
Right.
because you won't.
Yeah, I have another, just a follow-up to that, because you didn't, I mean, I don't know if you asked your parents a lot of questions when you were young.
I did, but it was really clear that it was a painful thing.
Right.
And and um, my father told me 2 or 3 things, like sentences about Auschwitz, and that's all I knew about it until this, when I now know so much.
Right.
Um, and uh, look, parents cry, and
Right.
you don't want to be a source of more sadness or sorrow.
Right.
So
Your business to
and
try.
and in a way, and back to, in a way, your original question was, what took you so long,
Right.
and why did it take 30 years? And I think part of why it's a scary thing to have the dead speak.
Mhm.
And also, I think that as much of a big shot as I appeared to myself to be, oh, Holocaust, Schmolocaust, I know it, know it, I wrote it. I mean, like, I don't, I'm inured. I'm inured.
Right.
I've read about it.
Right.
I've seen it. It wasn't true. I mean, I was afraid. I was
Right.
afraid to know more,
Mm.
um, until I wasn't. But
So face your fears and go anyway.
life is short. It will only enrich you. It's sad as all hell, but you will know from where you come, who your parents were before you knew them, or your grandparents. You
Mhm.
just know your grandparents, this even less. You know them, for the last 15 years of their life, and they lived for 70 years before you met them. What
Right.
did they do? Did they drive motorcycles? Did they, what did they do? And it's part of who you are. They
Mhm.
are you. You are them.
Yeah. We have another question from Tomek Adler. Could you tell us about the evolution of your deep connections to the world of your parents through art and culture, theater and Yiddish song up to this memoir? How do you integrate these mediums?
It's such a lovely question. I kind of didn't know myself in a way how it was all connected, but every song is connected to them in one way or another. I mean, I feel like I've been trying to tell their story since my father died in 1976. I understood that he had a tragic life and deserved to be known. And so, when I sing, I always personalize my work. I always, what do I connect with in this song? And who do I want to sing this song? Who does this song remind me of? I mean, so almost everything I do and have done, even in English, is has tentacles to them and kind of schleps them along. Either they're behind me or in front of me or next to me. And I didn't know, you say hyphenate, and I didn't know, in the early days of my career, people would say, well, what are you?
Right.
You have to be something. What are you? Are you an actress? Are you a singer? Do you speak Yiddish? Do you speak English? How should we sell you? And I thought, oh, I have to pick one. But I should have understood that I'm a storyteller. I'm a storyteller when I sing. I'm a storyteller when I write, when I act, when I talk. So, I mean, it's a little late in the game, but I'm glad. I'm glad the window's still open.
Absolutely. I mean, this experience, like you said, can only enrich whatever you do moving forward. We do have another question sort of back to the survivor fighter. Let's go back to that for a moment. How have others responded to your perspective of fighter versus survivor? Has it given people who have read your work new perspective?
I'll tell you, I mean, I get letters from people, children of fighters, who say, oh my God, thank you. I wondered, I've never felt good about who I am. I didn't understand who my parents were. And now I understand who they were. And, and I understand who I am. And people, I have a batch of letters and I didn't know what to do with them.
Right.
And now I'm going to do something with them. And
Amazing.
I've read every book on the Holocaust and I didn't think there was anything more to learn. And now I have a completely new understanding of it. I mean,
yeah, that's a big wow.
Too. I'm just writing.
Right. It's the ripple effect. And I just want to circle back and connect it to, you were doing Indecent and Rebecca Teichman and Paula Vogel, and the ripple effect of that. You're like, okay, I've seen this and that's impacting me and I'm going to go do something. And somebody's reading your book and they're going to go do something. And so there's the rippling. I just think that's, you can't underestimate that.
Because you don't really, it's so true. I mean, you don't know who you touch. And you don't know who you touches, and it just kind of it is that ripple effect. I don't know. I want to read a poem from the book.
Yes, please.
Can I do that? Yes. So part of this trip, another coincidence was on the last day, I wound up being taken to yet another memorial, and I thought, oh, criminy, I've had enough. Must we, and. And of course, it was yet another most meaningful moment and it was so meaningful. It was like, it was the most meaningful until the next most.
Right. They were all the most
I mean,
meaningful.
it was like so. But there was there were. This was a place in Stuttgart where my father's wife, first wife and daughter, happened to have been. Who knew? I didn't know that. We went
Right.
to this memorial, and there's a bunch of names, and there's
Mhm.
the name Schlüsselberg, right? So
That's an incredible moment. Yeah.
and so
And that picture of you next to the wall. There's a picture, everyone. There's a picture, beautiful pictures in this book that you should. Yeah, they're just stunning.
there were there was a glass case in it, it's a wall. It's like a group cemetery, kind of, not like Maya Lin's. It's exactly like Maya Lin's Vietnam memorial with the dead inscribed. So it's like a group tombstone. That's really what it is.
Right.
And then there's like an overhang where there's some photos and poems. And so there was this poem written in German, and I asked Hilke, my friend, the reporter, to translate it. And the name in German is Gespräch mit einem Überlebenden, which means spoken to a survivor. And it's written by Erich Fried, an Austrian Jew by birth. Spoken to a survivor. What did you do then that you should not have done? Nothing. What did you not do that you should have done? Oh, this and that and some other things. Why did you not do it? Because I was afraid. Why were you afraid? Because I did not want to die. Did others die because you did not want to die? I believe yes. Do you have something to say about what you did not do? Yes. I ask you, what would you have done in my place? That I do not know, and I cannot judge you. I only know one thing. Tomorrow, none of us will be alive if today we once again do nothing.
Wow. That's incredible.
But the book is also really funny.
No, it is really funny. It is. So we have one more question, and then I have kind of a final question. So this is from Judith Samuel, who wanted to know the name of the memorial in Stuttgart. And maybe you don't know. We can.
I'll tell you, Judith. There are many memorials in Stuttgart, many memorials in every other town. So there are the Stolpensteiner, those stones that you trip over that have the names of the peoples whose homes but we also went to this last one, this one that was like a communal tombstone, I think is called the Transport Memorial, because it takes place at the transport station in Stuttgart, and also at the place where the synagogue once, before it was burnt down in Kristallnacht, there's a memorial there as well. There are many memorials, but I only went to two, I think, two in Stuttgart and probably one in Ulm.
Thank you for that.
Sure,
Thank you for that
sure.
question. Well, I have two questions, actually. Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you want to share? There's so much, so I just want to give you the opportunity. And then I have a final question to close us out.
The book is the greatest sharing I think I've ever done. And it's kind of this thing about being known. I mean, here's it's a small little aside. It's a little jokey joke. So so I live in a community now, upstate New York, and everybody has read the book.
Right.
So where I live, everybody now knows about me and my family, which was the idea. Except, of course, my brother Seymour came to visit me, and we were, and he's in the book, and we were driving through the area, and a neighbor, and I stopped and I said, "Oh, Tom, this is my brother Seymour." It's like, "Oh, hi, hi, Tom, hi, Seymour. Okay, see you." And we kept going. But the next day when I saw Tom, he said, "Wow, that was Seymour."
See the ripple effect.
That was Seymour. I met Seymour.
Wow,
Wow.
that's
So it
amazing.
was sort of it's a little surreal.
That's a little surreal.
It's just a little surreal. Yeah.
Incredible. That's incredible.
Unintended consequences, really.
Yes, yes. Well, it's wonderful that the book is getting out there and reaching so many people and touching so many people. And it's such an honor to spend this time with you.
Thank you, Lisa.
It's so beautiful. I want to ask you, this is kind of a deeply personal question. I just thought it would be very poignant to ask you, if you could say something to your parents today, what would you say?
I would tell them that they did a really good job, that I'm really sorry I got the life that they should have had, but I'm grateful that I have it, and that I'm sorry for whatever heartache I brought them and gave them, because you can imagine, I gave them goodness, but I was not an easy child or an easy teenager. But I feel like but I feel like I've told them that. I feel like I thank them all the time, and I'm sorry. And I don't mean like it's my fault. I'm sorry, but I'm just sorry for the terrible life and times that they lived in, and it shouldn't happen to anyone. So, and now it's happening, and there never seems to be an end to it happening.
I'm sure they would be incredibly proud of you for bringing this to the world. So, yeah. Thank you so much. We are going to, just so everyone knows, this will be up on our Facebook page, and it will be on YouTube. So if you have friends that missed tonight because of other engagements, so you can certainly watch it later. And please find Eleanor at her website.
Also, I'm really happy to talk to book groups and book clubs and Jewish, Christian, Muslim organizations, schools. I'm really, really in the mood to yak. I have what to say about it.
Excellent.
So thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Oh, no, I'm glad. That's great. I think the more that this can get out there, the better. So we will help amplify that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks, ladies behind the scenes and men behind the scenes.